Baby, it's Shaka being that mafioso that done died, the coldest ninja with a nunchuck swinging behind his back, aka Shaka Black, aka SB Panther, aka Shaka being that, aka Shaka Fuego, aka Shaka Flame. Whoa, listen, man, we got a real topic to cover today, man. It's something that's been brewing, and it's been in the atmosphere for a while, man. We're gonna react to a video of China and the U.S. military are planning for war. Now, I never got the relationship between China and the U.S. because they don't like each other, but most of our goods and stuff are made in China. Our economy is based on China's economy. It's kind of weird. You would expect them to bring the jobs and stuff back to the U.S. soil, but yet they don't. And then now they're beefing, and it might destroy us all.
And some storage facilities.
Fantastic.
The Japanese government has been paying local fishermen to stay away from this island.
Fantastic.
That's because they're turning it into a military base. The island is being built by Japan, but one of its main purposes
it's gonna be so crazy if China and the U.S. go to war.
American fighter jets and aircraft carriers have had to do their drills and practices down here on this island, but now they're able to station at this island.
That's gonna be wild.
Much closer to this ocean and to one country in particular. Magashima is just one of many islands that are being loaded up with military hardware, most of it coming from the United States. It's part of this
never a good thing.
Militarized islands.
This is
an
never a
effort
good thing.
of defense or aggression, depending on how you look at it. It's a line that centers on Taiwan.
So I'm guessing they're gonna use these chain of islands.
What one official was referring to
to do a naval assault
2023
on China?
is likely to stand as the most transformative year in U.S. force posture in this region in a generation. This line is a symbol of the rising tensions between global superpowers, and I want to show you why this is happening now and what it means for the future of this conflict.
This is unlike anything the U.S. Navy has done since World War II.
Tensions are rising in one of the most hotly contested regions on the planet, the South China Sea.
This is never good.
Hey, gonna pause the story really quick.
I'm gonna skip this for y'all because I pay for YouTube Premium.
Copilot, which is a product that I actually use almost every day.
We're just not gonna do that.
Here we go.
I pay for YouTube Premium. I'm not watching any type of ad, brother.
Okay,
I'm sorry.
So, this document from the U.S. Department of Defense.
Let's go.
This document is called the National Defense.
Let's not go. I'm tripping.
States of America.
Let's not go for World War III.
Nuclear Posture Review and Missile Defense Review. It's basically a report that they release every 4 years that gives us an understanding of what the U.S. military is up to, what they care about.
World domination, of course.
But this year's is more detailed than normal. The document focuses a lot on China.
If China threatens our sovereignty, it concerns directly with China.
The DoD says that China, quote, remains our most consequential strategic competitor for coming decades. Why? Because, the Pentagon says, China is bullying its neighbors to, quote, reshape the region and the international system to fit.
I like how we care about everything and we're just the most just people in the world.
The United States, who
we care about justice and liberty for all.
Has set the rules for our global order, how we trade, what political systems we favor, who participates in the system, and now we see a country that wants to dethrone them, to create a new system based on
we
other
spend
values
$800 billion on military. That's
and
we better
what
have a
scares
super
the US
laser
military
somewhere.
Is that China is rapidly modernizing and expanding their military. China's military is growing incredibly fast. Like, they deploy the equivalent of an entire new British Navy every 4 years. Every 4 years, it's like new British Navy, like new Royal Navy every 4 years. Yeah,
that's crazy.
They're just growing very quickly. This report is concerned about China's growing strength and military footprint. How China is coercing.
Man, I heard that we have like way more advanced air force than
testing
China.
Missiles, bullying fishing vessels in other countries' waters, building islands and military bases on those islands, and flying over other countries' airspace, and especially in Taiwan. the island that China claims as their own and where the globe gets
Didn't
nearly
Taiwan
all of their
fight for its
advanced
independence or
microchips.
something like
It's a topic
that?
I made an entire video about. The point is, Taiwan is an incredibly important island for the United States. All of this together makes China, quote, the only country that has the intent and power to actually challenge the US-led global order and rewrite global rules and norms, something the US has gotten really comfortable doing over the last 70 years. So this is why the US considers China the most consequential strategic competitor for coming decades. And they've created a plan to respond. And in their words, we cannot delay. They give themselves this 10-year window to implement some major changes. And this is what it looks like.
This sounds
okay,
crazy.
First things first. The US military is already very present in Asia. We've got about 8,000 troops in Guam. We've got over 100 bases in Japan with about 21,000 American troops on the mainland and another 24,000 stationed down here on the Japanese island of Okinawa. Go up to South Korea and you'll find 22,000 US troops. And then you've got the US Navy who operates out of this port in Singapore. This has been the status quo in Asia for decades. And it has been the way that the US has ensured security
So they've
for
been
its allies.
surrounding China.
And it's kind of mostly worked to help secure American interests and deter conflict. The US has maintained strong alliances in this region. And frankly, the Pentagon has kind of been distracted with other things. 2 wars that happened in the Middle East over the past 20 years.
My fellow citizens, my fellow citizens, my fellow citizens.
But as those conflicts wind down, and as
My fellow
China
citizens.
militarizes, the Department of Defense says that this status quo, all of these troops in Asia, it's not enough. They talk about this new kind of
Well, it's only
deterrence.
100,000.
Integrated deterrence. The only kind of military posture that will actually keep China at bay. And this is what it looks like. The smallest part of the strategy has to do with American bases. They're going to reopen a base in Guam and
I wonder
move some
why the
troops
U.S.
there. But
never, I
majority
mean,
of this strategy
the Western
has to do
Hemisphere
with
never tried to
American
colonize the
allies
Eastern
in
Hemisphere.
Asia. Allies that are in lockstep with the U.S.'s goal to deter and contain
Probably 'cause the
China.
Chinese
The Pentagon
empire is
calls
pretty
partnering
strong.
with its allies the center of gravity for this strategy. So let's start with Japan, one of the US's closest allies in the region. Japan is a country that is deeply concerned about a more powerful China, with its massive navy and its ambitions to control Taiwan. And it's very easy to forget that Japan isn't just this. It's actually all of this. It extends way down here because of all these islands. These islands curve nicely all the way down till they hit Taiwan. All of these are Japanese islands. I mean, if you look at
I didn't know
Japan's
that.
national defense strategy translated into English,
about to say,
you
what
will
the
see
hell?
something that looks strikingly similar to what the Pentagon released. They're both really freaked out about China, and they both are ready to act in lockstep to deter a more aggressive China in the region. So it starts up here with that island that we talked about at the beginning, Magashima. This new
China,
military
big
base
dog,
and
for real.
airstrip to be used by both Japanese and US militaries. Further south is Amami Island, where Japan has
Amami.
recently added long-range missiles and anti-ship missiles. Potentially they're going to add cruise missiles. These are missiles that they're buying from the United States. These are missiles
It's
that
gonna
are
get super
definitely
ugly.
in range of the Taiwan Strait. Next to the chain is Okinawa, where the US has a huge presence of tens of thousands of troops already. Japan also has military
They got
bases here
tens of
and is
thousands,
adding
but it's
even
millions
more
of Chinese
long-range
people. This is
missiles
their
and
homeland.
Electronic warfare units, which are military installations meant to disrupt and deny communication signals. On these 2 islands down here, they're adding even more long-range missiles, which could potentially be used to attack Chinese naval ships.
Oh, I
and
see
aircraft.
why the Taiwan's
And
such a
Japan
big
is
deal.
placing
It's
nearly
like
600 troops
it's like
on
right
each
between
island.
China and America's
And finally, you got
allies.
this last militarized island.
So if China takes back Taiwan,
It's the closest island to Taiwan.
then they're
And here Japan is
they
adding
really have a
more of
good
those electronic warfare units, which are used
base
to
that's near
jam
Japan.
communication signals or to
because
listen in
they're
on
definitely going to
communications
expand up
right
these
next to
islands.
China. Japan is also
They're definitely going to
positioning
expand
more
up these
troops.
islands and
So
then
this is
start
the
making their
first
way
part of
towards
our
Japan
chain.
again.
And when paired with training that Japan
then Korea's right
US
here.
are doing to simulate island and amphibious
So that's
warfare,
definitely gonna
it
get
sends
warfare
a really
popped
strong
off.
signal to China that Japan is ready to respond if needed. This line also serves as like a physical barrier that any Chinese ship or submarine would have to pass through in order to access the Pacific Ocean. It's a line that Japan can easily control and monitor. And it also builds a
Oh, that's
wall
a
of
key
missiles.
point.
Any
It's a key
calculus
point
that
in
China
any
is
type of
making on whether
military
or not to
affair.
invade Taiwan or to do anything in the region will have to now factor in this wall of missiles ready to roll. Overall, this increased military presence on this chain of islands gives Japan, and by extension the United States, the ability to monitor communications and troop movements.
Oh,
of
you know
China,
it's gonna be
preparing
guerrilla
them to act
warfare like
quickly. And it also
mad
gives them the
over
ability
there.
to pre-position troops and supplies throughout the region, which is a major logistical advantage. But all of this comes with a massive price tag. So Japan, which is formerly a pacifist nation without like a huge military, is actually planning to double their defense spending. They're spending way more on buying weapons than they ever have before, and 97% of those weapons are coming from the United States. The island chain strategy continues down here with the Philippines, close to Taiwan and close to the South China Sea. The US knows that it needs to bolster its presence here, but it's not as straightforward as it is in Japan. The Philippines was a US colony for decades.
Oh, they have
Very sensitive
colonized
history.
Asia before.
And even after Filipino independence, the US maintained a military presence in the Philippines until like the 90s. And then they eventually kicked out the US, as many saw it as just an enduring legacy of US colonialism. But a more aggressive China has become a major threat to the Philippines. Now listen, I'm not going to go into like a full South China Sea thing here, but just know that China claims all of this as their maritime boundary. It's literally a line with 9 dashes that some Chinese official in 1948 drew by hand.
Vietnam was pretty
this
bad.
line
Just
blasts
imagine how
through
China's
the
gonna be.
boundaries that the rest of the world recognizes as the Filipino territorial waters. So there's a conflict in the ocean. And now, on a daily basis, Filipino fishing vessels are harassed by Chinese military vessels, who threaten them if they don't leave their waters. In 2022, China put a temporary stop to all fishing in the South China Sea, denying the Philippines' ability to fish in the West Philippine Sea, which is rightfully their waters. But it's crazier than that. The Chinese Navy is like full-blown just bullying the Philippines. They like show up with lasers to harass and blind Filipino ships. I mean, let's remember, the Philippines is a much smaller nation than China and doesn't really have a navy even close to what China has. So now they're in this impossible decision. They have to choose between giving up their sovereignty and fishing rights to their aggressive neighbor, China, or partnering with their former colonizer who also wants to repel China. And in this case, they chose the latter.
China has pushed too hard. It's pushed the Philippines in the South China Sea, what they call
Back
the West
to the U.S.
Philippine
colonizer.
The Philippines is planning to boost its military presence in the disputed South China Sea.
It started in 2014 when they allowed the US back in for the first time in 22 years. The US presence will technically be in bases that are owned by the Philippines, but the US can have troops, build barracks, and other military installations, and can have pre-positioned supplies there as well. It's basically like the US has bases there, but it's like, shh, it's actually the Philippines. And as part of all of this that we've been talking about, in late 2022, they expanded their agreement, giving US military access to 4 more bases, bringing the total number of bases on the Philippines up to 9. And look where they selected to put them, here in the north of the country, strategically close to Taiwan, and helping fill their gap in their island chain that they're creating. This now allows US to have a military presence really close to Taiwan.
It looks like it's about to get ugly.
With their Filipino counterparts, making them ready to respond very quickly to an invasion in Taiwan, while also repelling Chinese bullying of Filipino fishing activity. Okay, so now the island chain is filling out, giving the US and its regional partners a solid blockade to the Pacific. And it continues all the way down around the South China Sea.
How do we know they're gonna respect the nuclear war agreement?
But it doesn't stop here.
Because it seems like it's going to end
The
a
last part
nuclear
of the
war.
strategy is potentially the most significant, and it has to do with Australia, a country that is also alarmed by China's rise in the region. So there's this military pact between the US, the UK, and Australia.
How far
It's
is
called
Australia
AUKUS.
from
What it means is that these
China?
3 countries will work together to create a unified submarine force that will patrol the Pacific. First, what it means is that the US is giving nuclear submarine technology,
That's what
its
Trump
most
does all the
powerful and
time.
advanced weapon.
What does this
freely
mean? Is
to
this a
Australia.
symbol?
Here are the designs to our most powerful weapons. Take them, foreign country. And then the US and UK will base submarines out of this port here in Australia. It's called Perth. Australian sailors will ride alongside US
Amazing.
and UK sailors during submarine deployments, They will learn together, they will work together, they will share classified intelligence. What this means is that there will be a significantly larger number of submarines patrolling these waters. And remember, these are nuclear-powered submarines, which we made a whole video on as well. These things can be underwater for months. They can go on these long patrols over to Taiwan and the South China Sea. They can close up these key choke points, plugging holes in their growing line against China. And, crucially, we can be pretty damn certain that a lot of these submarines will be carrying nuclear weapons, adding yet another layer of
nuclear warfare, just like I said.
Powerful line of defense. And if this wasn't enough,
yeah, this is gonna destroy the planet.
A permanent hangar for U.S. B-52 bombers up here in the Tyndall Air Base in northern Australia. These U.S. bombers carry conventional weapons, but they also carry nukes. So now, U.S. bombers carrying nuclear weapons will have a permanent home in Australia. There's going to be a lot more military hardware in the Pacific because of this. Hardware that carries the most powerful and dangerous weapons we have. This is a very aggressive signal to China that the West is ready.
Fantastic.
So now, if you look at the whole thing, this whole chain, you see how robust this presence is. This is what that military official meant by transformative. The military name for this is the First Island Chain, and it is at the heart of the U.S. and
now, when you see the bigger picture, they ready for war, boy.
China. And it's easy to see that this island chain,
I don't think U.S. will let any country get that close to us, bro. That's crazy.
Really centers on Taiwan. A major purpose for all of this militarization, the missiles, the subs, the air bases, the troops, is to prepare for conflict in Taiwan. And this is where we get to the paradox of deterrence. You prepare to fight so that you don't have to fight. All of this preparation might be just what is needed for China to decide that it would be too costly to invade Taiwan. But the other side of that paradox is that all of this looks an awful lot like overt escalation in a conflict. If you're China, this chain of islands is clearly your enemy trying to box you in, to monitor your every move. A superpower from the other side of the world flooding your region with more military hardware to stop your influence.
You ain't gonna have no choice but to fight.
For this plan to not contribute to a rising of tensions between the two superpowers.
All this as the U.S. prepares for a potential conflict with China.
How close are we to all-out conflict between the world's two largest
a stone's throw away.
继续沿着错误的道路狂飙下去，再多的护栏也挡不住脱轨翻车，陷入对抗冲突。
Chinese President Xi Jinping has already called
Xi
this a
Jinping don't
policy
care.
of
He like,
encirclement and suppression. And
he ready for
let's be honest, he's right. Whether you like it or not, this is containment. Old school Cold War style containment. It's hard not to see it when you look at this map. And the Chinese foreign minister said that it would literally be impossible for China to not fight back, to take a move that
they kind of
retaliates
forced their
against
hand.
this move. Which means that if the US and its allies aren't careful with all of this, it may send a signal to China that now is the time to invade Taiwan, before all of this plan can fully be implemented. In that sense, this strategy...
This shit got me feeling like Taiwan finna get invaded tomorrow.
Trying to deter.
Ooh-wee. I don't know, gang. It seems like it's getting pretty ugly. You know what I'm saying? Ever since the whatchamacallit hit, the COVID-19, bruh, I've been feeling like it's gonna be a pretty massive retaliation or a massive fight between the US and China, because China blaming the US blaming China, and it seems like the plan is slowly unfolding, y'all. But y'all let me know what y'all think in the comments, you know. Y'all like, comment, subscribe, describe, transcribe. Let me know what y'all think, man, because if you ask me, it doesn't seem like it's gonna be a good thing, and in the years to come it's gonna get harder, and we're definitely gonna be preparing for the big one, if you know what I mean. But it's your boy Shaka B, and that mafioso, the done died, the coldest ninja with a nunchuck swinging behind his back, aka Shaka Black, aka SB Panther, aka Shaka Fuego, aka Shaka Flame, man. Y'all let me know what y'all think. Peace.